Well, okay, it's 10:30, time to start this webinar. Um, so let me start by just introducing briefly myself. My name is Claude Lambret. I'm an expert at the European Food Safety Authority, the EFSA, and I'm the chair of the Food Contact Material Panel and of the Working Group on Extraction Solvent, which is one of the Food Contact Material Panel standing working group. I will be the moderator of this webinar today. On behalf of EFSA, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you to this webinar about the evaluation of technical hexane, which is currently authorized as an extraction solvent for food and food ingredients under Directive 2009/32 EC. Following a preliminary technical report published last year, EFSA received from the European Commission last month a mandate to conduct a full re-evaluation of this solvent. This assessment will be prepared by the Working Group on Extraction Solvents of the FCM panel of EFSA. The today webinar is part of the activity of this working group, and in particular with the presentation of the call for data today, and this will be explained in further details by the different speakers. Let me start by giving you a few logistical information and to precise some housekeeping rules about the practical course of this webinar. May I have the next slide, please? Okay, so you are automatically connected to the audio broadcast, one-way audio, listen-only mode. No registration is authorized from your side. Of course, the event will be is in English, and the event is being recorded, and the recording will be published on EFSA's website shortly after the end of this webinar. After the event, attendees will receive a link for a survey to evaluate the EFSA's events and service. Next slide, please. So the webinar aims to launch and explain the call for data, to explain which data are asked, how to submit your data, and who can submit data. The assessment has not started yet. This is the very first step in the assessment today. Some very practical information. Please do not resubmit questions that have already been sent through the registration form. They will be either answered during the webinar or have been considered out of scope. Question about interpretations of the European Union regulation, possible legislative measures following the EFSA's assessment, scientific details on the assessment are out of scope of the webinar today and will not be addressed today. The next slide, please. Just to say that you are 400 of you registered for this meeting. Not all of you are present today, but still, therefore, to make it smooth and efficient, I would like to consider the point just addressed before. If you want to ask questions while the speaker is presenting the slides, please use the Q&A chat, which is available to you. And now let me introduce the different speakers of today. Apart from myself, they are all members of the EFSA staff. We have Daniele Camandella, which is a scientific officer at the FIP unit, Food Ingredient and Packaging Unit at EFSA, Cristina Correa, Federico Morreale, and Alexios Zompas. The next slide, please. We can move to the agenda. After these first introductory remarks from myself, we will start with the presentation by Daniele Camandella on the background and overview of the call for data. Then Daniele will continue with the presentation of the data requested on identity, uses, and exposure. Then we will go on with the presentation by Cristina Correa with the data requested on toxicology. And finally, the data collection presented by Federico and Alexios before the Q&A session, which will start at 12 until 12:25, and then the concluding remarks to wrap up this session. Okay, it's now time, I would say, to start the real work, and I give the floor to our first speaker, Daniele Camandella, who will present the background and overview of the call for data. Daniele, you have the floor now.
Yes, thank you, Claude. So now we will proceed with a short outline with of the background and overview of the call for data, which is the topic of this webinar. Next slide, please. First, let's speak about a bit the European regulation. So as already introduced by Claude, technical hexane is authorized to be used as an extraction solvent in the production of food and food ingredients, according to Directive 2009/32 from the European Commission. Actually, in the directive, technical hexane is called hexane. But for this evaluation and also for the report that EFSA published in 2024, it was decided to call the substance technical hexane to differentiate it better from one of its components, which is normal hexane. The directive lays out the permitted conditions of use and the maximum residue limits. The conditions of use are just the processes of extraction of food and the types of food that are allowed, while the maximum residue limits are the maximum allowed concentrations or levels of technical hexane in the foods or food ingredients. In the middle of the slide, you may see the allowed conditions of use, the MRLs for hexane, as they are in the directive. In the second column, we have the conditions of use, and the third, the MRLs. As you can see, technical hexane is allowed for the production of fats and oils, cocoa butter, defatted protein products and flours, and defatted cereal germs. Then we have MRLs from 1 to 30 milligram kilogram in the food or food ingredients. The directive itself also defines technical hexane, or hexane in the directive, as a commercial product consisting essentially of acylic saturated hydrocarbons containing 6 carbon atoms and distilling between 64 and 70 degrees C. So the composition of technical hexane is defined based on the boiling point of the components. And so as a result, it is a mixture derived from mineral oil consisting of mainly of normal hexane, which is the linear form of C6 alkane. You can see the formula here, but not only normal hexane, but also a quite large amount of various other hydrocarbons, largely made of 6 carbon atoms, but they could be also 7 or 5. Next slide, please. Regarding the safety of technical hexane as an extraction solvent in the preparation of food and food ingredients has been evaluated by the Scientific Committee on Food, which was the EFSA precursor, and the last time it was evaluated in 1996. Then in 2024, EFSA addressed the safety of technical hexane once again and published a report on the need for evaluation of this safety. In this report, it was concluded that the safety of technical hexane should be reevaluated. And to support this, EFSA reported some considerations on identity, uses, exposure, and toxicology. Today, we won't detail all these considerations, even if we will list some of them when we will speak of the requirements, the request of the call for data. So if you would like to have a full picture of what has been considered in the report, please consult it. It is available online. Next slide, please. Okay, as already said by Claude, in May 25, so a short ago, we received from the European Commission a mandate where the Commission asked us to reevaluate the safety of technical hexane. In this mandate, it was said that the EFSA opinion is expected within 30 months from the receipt of the mandate. So we have a deadline of December 2027. Also, in this case, if you would like to read the mandate, is available on Open EFSA website. In the second part of the slide, you can see part of this mandate. So I will just read it to understand what is requested to EFSA. So the European Commission asked EFSA to evaluate the safety of using hexane as an extraction solvent in the production of foodstuff and food ingredients. EFSA shall perform the assessment considering the oral exposure to hexane residues through all dietary sources. EFSA should make use of any relevant scientific and technical information that is available that can be provided by interested parties via call for data or submitted spontaneously. The opinion should be adopted within 30 months following the receipt of the mandate. So this is what is being asked to EFSA. Next slide, please. So EFSA is going to address this reevaluation first by focusing on the collection of data. We really need a large, quite large and relevant data. So this is also one of the goals of today's discussion, to also show which data we want and also encourage you, if any of you has data, to submit it to EFSA. In this data collection phase, we will collect data mainly via two pathways. We will carry out a systematic literature review, so screening the information on published information and appraise it. This part will be mainly focused on toxicity data. Then we will also are publishing a call for data to collect information from stakeholders and interested parties. And this is the objective of today's webinar. This call for data has been not published yet, but will be published very soon. We hope to publish it next week. The information requested are based on the report and also the guidance for the submission of food additives. We use this guidance also for the evaluation, for the appraisal of extraction solvents. So everything we are going to tell you today actually has already been outlined in the report or in the guidance for the submission of food additives. The data will have to be submitted via Portalino, which is the electronic submission platform of EFSA to submit scientific data. The deadline to submit data, we will give a deadline up to October 2025, so 4 months from the publication of the call for data. We have an exception here, which is the submission of analytical data on technical hexane residues in food or food ingredients. In this case, data will have to be submitted via the yearly submission on chemical monitoring, which is open between April to June every year. So this means that the collection for this year is already open, but of course there are not so many days left, but still we wanted to have it open this year in case we will manage to gather some data. And we expect, however, to have the bulk of the data next year. So if any of you also is think about submitting data, so we have still quite some time to prepare ourselves also in terms of the administrative procedure to submit data. Anyway, later in this webinar, we will have a very detailed presentation on how to submit data, both via Portalino and to the yearly submission on chemical monitoring. Next slide, please. All right, so I will now we'll go on by giving you some more information on what is requested in the call for data on identity, uses, and exposure of technical hexane. Next slide, please. Regarding the identity, I've already reported how the directive defines technical hexane. So the composition actually is specified only based on the boiling point range. This means that it's not specified or directly specified in terms of the identity of the various components of the mixtures and their typical levels and ranges. So as a result, the composition is expected to greatly vary depending on the composition of the mineral oil source from which technical hexane is produced, and also based on the preparation process, which includes distillation. This, in short, this lack of data does not allow a proper risk assessment, because actually we don't know actually what is inside of technical hexane. We know that the major component is normal hexane, but we don't know exactly how much, what are the levels of the other components. We have some information about it. So from literature data, we found out, and this is reported in the technical report, we found out that it is expected that technical hexane mainly consists of normal hexane and other structurally related hydrocarbons. For example, 2-methylpentane, 3-methylpentane, heptane. The fraction of normal hexane is really dependent on the production process and the type of and the composition of the crude oil from which it has been obtained, and was reported to be between 20% and 80%, but typically between 40 and 60%. At the time of the safety assessment by the Scientific Committee on Food, it was reported by industry that the typical level of normal hexane was around 50%. So we know this, but actually it's very limited information. So we cannot consider this representative data of the technical hexane currently used in the European Union nowadays. That's why also we need more data on this. Moreover, the directive doesn't really set specifications for impurities. As a result, there are various grades of technical hexane for food extraction that are available on the market, and the specification depending on the supplier. Without specification, it's really hard to understand what would be the impact on the consumers of impurities of toxicological concern, if there are in technical hexane. Next slide, please. So after this introduction, what are we actually asking regarding identity? First, a description of the processes used to produce technical hexane, so used to manufacture technical hexane. What we're interested in is what are the steps contributing to define the composition, if they are refining steps to remove impurities, and also the type and composition of the mineral oil source. Then we are also asking analytical data on the composition of technical hexane. And this means that we need to know the identity, the typical levels and expected ranges of both normal hexane, but also of all other components that made the mixture. And also we need to know the identity and levels of impurities of toxicological concern, including proposed specifications for the various types of technical hexane that are available on the market. Regarding this analytical data on the composition, which is a really key information that we would like to have, this information needs to be supported by relevant supporting data. So description of the methods used, certificates of analysis, and raw and validation data. Of course, they have to be, we expect to receive data that is representative of the technical hexane currently used as an extraction solvents in the European Union market. What is important is also that we are seeking data not just on the technical hexane that may be used for extraction purposes, so what we call fresh technical hexane, but also for the hexane that is already been used in the process. We know that some processes recycled and reuse hexane. So it is relevant also that we know what is the composition of the hexane which is used and recovered, so which is used over many cycles. Next slide, please. Let's move on to the uses. Here I will make it very short, but in the technical report by EFSA 2024, it was said that the extraction processes may propagate the impurities from technical hexane to the extracted food, depending on their physicochemical properties and type of the extraction process applied. However, these were partly theoretic considerations because we're based only on typical extraction processes for vegetable oils, so only one of the authorized applications. We didn't apply the same reasoning to the other conditions of use. And moreover, we did not really consider analytical levels of impurities in the extracted foods because we didn't have reliable data on this. So to conclude on this, to understand whether there is a concern or not, we will need quite some data on the uses of hexane, the current uses of hexane. First of all, on the left of the slide, I would like to understand what are the actual application of technical hexane as an extraction solvent. This means for which food and food ingredients are currently used, and also what are the fraction of that food and food ingredients that is extracted with technical hexane. We know, for example, that technical hexane is used for extraction of vegetable oils, but we know that it is not used for certain vegetable oils because the process is not economically viable. Also, we know that not all a given vegetable oil is totally extracted with hexane because partly it's crushed, so it's extracted via pressure. Maybe only 20 or 50% is extracted with hexane. We really need to know this for all the intended uses for the applications of hexane. The second piece of information that we really would like to know is the description of the extraction processes that are using a technical hexane to extract food and food ingredients, because this is related to our understanding of whether there might be this propagation of impurities through the process. So we would like to know what are the types of these extraction processes, and more importantly, what is how the solvent and the food are contacting each other, how they're separated, and how the solvent, so the technical hexane, is recovered, reused to extract food over many cycles, if there is this possibility. Also, we'd like to know if there are any refinement steps that are used to purify the solvent and the extracted food before, during, and after the process. On top of this, we would like also to understand whether there is other relevant information that any stakeholder submitting data think that we will need to know to address the uses of hexane, technical hexane. For example, information on the fate of technical hexane components during the processing of food, if it is expected that some components would degrade or form reactant products. Next slide, please. Thank you. Regarding the exposure part, also here I will be very brief. So if you really want to know the full picture, please read the report. So in the 2024 report, EFSA carried out a conservative exposure assessment that resulted in exposure estimates generally exceeding the estimate made by the Scientific Committee on Food. The SCF estimated an exposure of 0.1 milligram kilogram body weight per day, but only for a general population, so for adult consumption. While the exposure made by EFSA also considered other age groups. In general, the estimate by EFSA were higher than this value of the SCF, and we found out that under this scenario, the exposure for children, toddlers, and infants was deviating to a greater extent than for other age groups, so was higher. However, this assessment was based on the regulatory limits, so the MRL in the legislation, and conservative assumption on the applicable food categories. For example, it was considered that all vegetable oils are extracted with technical hexane, which might be an overestimation. So we understand that this scenario did not represent the real exposure. And to properly assess the risk for the consumer, we need to adequately estimate, so it's estimate better the exposure. So what we need are analytical data of technical hexane residues in food and beverages for human consumption. This is really key information. And it's important to stress here that you want this data for any food and food ingredients, so not just the foods that may be extracted that are allowed to be extracted with hexane, as in the directive. This because we know that we expect also that residues may also have a different origin. For example, there might be carryover from feed who has technical hexane residues to food of animal origin. And the exposure assessment will have to consider all residues of hexane. Then we also need to know what are the food and food categories that may contain technical hexane. This is a bit overlapping with the request we did for the uses. In this case, we will need this to properly refine the exposure assessment. In this case, though, we want information only for the categories in which residues are expected due to the use as a food extraction solvent. No other uses, because this is what we have been asked by the European Commission. So we will evaluate only the safety of technical hexane in the extraction of food and food ingredients. Okay, next slide. Okay, I think I'm already done, which was earlier than expected. So I leave the floor to my colleague Cristina.
Thank you, Daniele. So I'm going to present you the data that we need to request on the toxicity of hexane. Please, next slide. Starting from the outcome of the report of 2024, it was concluded that the available information does not raise concern for genotoxicity, neither of technical hexane or n-hexane. However, it was also concluded that the information considered by the Scientific Committee of Food is no longer sufficient to adequately conclude on the risk of technical hexane. Indeed, as already reported in the Scientific Committee of Food opinion, n-hexane is absorbed after oral intake, and according to the EFSA guidance for submission of data for food additive evaluation, that is taken into account also to evaluate extraction solvent due to similarities in the approach. Toxicity study described in different tiers of validity of reliability, so in tier 1 and tier 2 are required, that were not really considered by the Scientific Committee of Food. In general, these studies comprise, apart from genotoxicity, in vivo and in vitro testing, of course, TK and absorption study, distribution, metabolism, excretion studies, also subchronic toxicity, chronic toxicity, and carcinogenicity, as well as reproductive and developmental toxicity. So then, depending on the outcome of these studies, additional studies also described in tier 3 with lower reliability could be required. Next slide, please. Additionally, recent publication reported that new information identifies some effects on n-hexane and its metabolites, for instance, on kidney, liver, also lung, I can say, on immunotoxicity, on endocrine disruptor activity, and also regarded male and female reproductive toxicity and the capacity of hexane to cross the placental barrier, and also possible effects on developmental toxicity. Moreover, it is noted that technical hexane may be used also to extract food and food ingredients that are used to prepare infant formula. For instance, vegetable oils, soy isolates, or lipids, according to the regulation 2016-127. Therefore, if such use will be confirmed, specific toxicological data is also requested to conclude on the safety of food used for infants below 16 weeks of age. So, considering all the information above, EFSA invites business operator and other interested parties to submit relevant data to assess the hazards related to the exposure to technical hexane, and in particular, next slide, toxicological data derived from both animal and human studies via any route of exposure, as well as from in vitro studies, and also including mode of action studies. In general, the facts considered relevant for the assessment could relate to the following health outcome categories: general toxicity, considering possibly repeated dose, long-term toxicity studies, and especially on lung, liver, and kidney; reproductive and developmental toxicity, and especially developmental toxicity of reproductive, neurological, and immune system; data on neurotoxicity, on immunotoxicity, on endocrine disrupting activity, on genotoxicity, of course, also on carcinogenicity, but also on any other toxicity available. And last but not least, on the toxicokinetics data and ADME studies. So with this, I conclude on the toxicological data request, and I pass the floor to Claude. Okay, we will introduce the next speaker.
Thank you, Cristina. I think we could hear you, so I think the main message is passed to our participants to the webinar. Okay, so thank you very much. We can move on now to the next presentation by Federico Moreale on the data collection of chemical and toxicological data. I think that's very important for you as participants to know exactly how to submit your data. So I think a very detailed presentation of the procedure was needed. So Federico, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me very well?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you. So if you can go to the next slide, please. So if you want to participate to this call for data, the portal, the platform that you need to use to submit your information is Portalino. It's our submission system for a call for expression of data. And to participate to this call, you can decide on participating on behalf of your organization, if you are representing a university, a consortium, or a company, or as a private citizen. In both of the cases, as a first step, you need to contact Service Desk. I provided the email here on the screen. When you contact them, you need to provide the information that I included in the square here in this slide. Basically, because we need to clearly identify you as a person participating in this call and why you are participating, because we have different calls in parallel, maybe we need to understand perfectly. So the first information that you need to provide them is the scope of the submission. I put here, for instance, the title of this call, and you can also indicate them the EFSA question number. Another important information that you need to provide is personal detail of you that you are requesting the access. For instance, your first name, the last name. If you are working for your organization, so on behalf of a company, we need your corporate email, because we have to be sure that you are a direct employee of that company and you are actually representing them in this call. So we need your corporate email. While on the other side, if you are participating as a private citizen, it's just an email associated to yourself, obviously, that you can monitor, because during the registration to access Portalino, but also during the call and the assessment of the data, EFSA may need to contact you, so we need a trusted way to be in contact with you. If you are representing an organization, we need also your organization details. Simple information like organization name. If it is not in English, please provide the English name also, and a relevant organization email, like a general email that we can use to contact in any case your organization in case your email is not available. Yes, here is a point that I wanted to stress that is important. That your email or the email of your organization, I mean the domain of this email, is linked with your organization. I mean, it's not mandatory that is exactly the name, because we know that there are companies that are part of a mother company, and you may are representing only a child company of that. But please specify why your email is linked to your mother company. Then another important aspect is that Portalino works in conjunction with another platform that we have here in EFSA, that is Connect EFSA. This platform is used by EFSA to keep information about all the user and the contact, in general, all the people that is engaging with us, because we may need to contact you later, because we may need to inform you about steps of the call or future call in the same area. So an important step before or in parallel to contacting Service Desk for activating your access to Portalino is to register on Connect EFSA. If your organization is not registered, please register in advance, because the registration may take a couple of days of verification, and then you are then ready to enter in Portalino and start your submission. Here in the slide, I put also the link to the directly to the page on Connect EFSA where you can register. Next slide, please. Here in this slide, I wanted just to provide you some more indication to support all the contributors to call for data. EFSA prepared a series of user guide that you can use. It's not mandatory to use, but they are available for you in case you have any question. And here I wanted to provide you a user guide on Portalino that basically contain information, graphical information on how to use the platform. Is a very easy to use guidance and very hands-on information are provided. Then I wanted to also include the Connect EFSA registration user manual in case you may have any issue during the registration, but I can reassure you that the registration is quite linear and straightforward. So in the best of the hypotheses, you don't need to use it. Then in case your data that you are going to submit for this call contain confidential information, during the submission via Portalino, you will ask to indicate the confidentiality for certain part of the information or the data that you are going to submit to EFSA, because for transparency regulation, EFSA proactively publishes information and data for the scientific process. So you can introduce in Portalino your data and accompany them with a claim for confidentiality, providing a justification. So here I wanted to include the user guide on confidentiality, where in section D, chapter 3, you find exact indication provided by our legal department about how to submit a confidentiality request for your data. As a general information, if you have any issue during the registration, technical issue like you are stuck somewhere, you don't know how to proceed, please contact service desk. The operators are informed, and behind them, behind this service, there are people, not an AI. So it's people interacting with you and helping you to find the solution. Together with this, if you have any problem or you don't understand the rules for the submission, you have doubt on confidentiality or on the type of data to submit, please contact our RAL unit. I provided you here the email, and I think my colleague Irena is connected with us today. Her with the colleagues will be very happy to support you and understand which is your problem and guide you until the solution. Next slide, please. So here I wanted just to provide you some screenshot of Portalino, the same one that you will find in the user guide on Portalino. I will go very rapidly to here. It is just to get you familiarized with the platform. So when you will have access to Portalino and you log in, the first page that you see is overview of submission, like this one that I'm showing you now. And in particular, you should have a button, new submission, on the top right hand of your screen. With that button, if you click it, it starts the submission process. Next slide, please. The submission process is guided. If you see the screen, there is on the left hand the general info with all the numbers that are basically the step of the submission of your data, while on the right side is the interface where you can work. So the first information is the general info, the subject of the submission. You need to indicate the food sector area and if this is an initial submission or you are providing additional data to an already submitted set of information. Maybe in your case, as a first submitter, is initial data set that you have to select. Then you click on next. Next slide, please. And the system guides you to the data owner page. The data owner page is basically you as a private citizen or your company, because you are submitting the data representing your company. Here, the system is connected with Connect EFSA and automatically retrieves all the information about your company, and you don't need to do nothing here. Only select your company and the system will compile the field automatically. Can you please go to the next slide? Here, the submission owner. This is an important point. Submission owner can be 3 people. These people are those that are practically preparing and submitting the data on Portalino. Those in charge of the submission of the data. You need to put your email because here then the system can, categorize you and we can contact you during the submission or afterwards. As I told you, can be only 3 colleagues, so 3 people from your company or you alone as a private citizen. The submission owners are people registered under your company account on Connect EFSA. You cannot add here at this stage people outside of your company. Please, next slide. In fact, here I wanted to put the error that you may receive if you are trying to add a person that is not registered under your company account. Basically, the system is asking you to register this person as a contributor. Next slide, please. Here the contact. So let's say you are working on behalf of another company or on behalf of a consortium that is third respect to your company, or you want to include colleagues that are not registered on Connect EFSA. Here you can add the contact. The contact of the submission are basically the contact person that EFSA will contact in case there are issues with the submission, or in case confidentiality assessment, or in case later on there are I don't know, any requests for information about your data. So the contact, and you can add many people here, are the people that actually EFSA is contacting for the submission purposes. So there is a difference between the submission owners that are the actors preparing and submitting the data set, and the contacts that are instead the people that EFSA consider as a contact point, as a contact person in case of question. Next slide, please. Here you can upload your data for the submission. As I introduced before, you can claim confidentiality on some data. And in case you are going to do that, you need to introduce a justification for the confidentiality. Basically, you see the button add confidentiality request, and there the system will guide you in the compiling of the form for requesting confidentiality. And you are also requested to include a public version of the data, so a data set without the confidential information, and a confidentiality one for EFSA with all the information, also those that you are going to claim as confidential. When everything is ready, when you uploaded the file singularly or in a zip folder, and you inserted any potential confidentiality request, you can click on submit, and then your submission is done. You basically submitted the data to EFSA and you receive a confirmation message. Next slide, please. So with this, I completed my part. If you have any question, then there will be a question and answer session, I think. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We can now move on to the next presentation. Thank you, colleague. We can move on to the next presentation by Alexios about the characteristic of the analytical data transmitted to EFSA. Alexios, you have the floor.
Thank you very much. Welcome everyone also from my side. I'm Alexios Orbas and I work as data steward in relation to the contaminants data collection. As previously specified by Daniela, for the collection of occurrence analytical data, we have different routes to collect data. Therefore, the two presentations will focus on the analytical data and how the data can be transmitted to EFSA. I would like to start with some basic definitions and concepts in relation to the data collection for occurrence data. We have the data providers from one side, which can be from member states, representatives from member states, and also from industry. And from the other side, we have the data receiver, which is EFSA. And those two parties, they need to speak the same language to make sure that the data receivers interpret the data as intended by the data providers. And to succeed this, the data provided to EFSA need to conform to standard structure. And this standardized structure compiles of the catalogs, which provide the wording of a reporting language, the so-called control terminologies. And also we have the data model, which specifies the framework and the structure to be applied to report the data. We have the data model. We use a specific data model, and there are some specific functions and advantages when we use a data model. The data model harmonizes the data reporting among the member states and other reporting countries and organizations. It ensures that the data collected are relevant and can be analyzed at the European level, consequently used in EFSA's risk assessments. And it helps also the member states and also the data providers from industry during the transmission of data. Each year, we also publish we are publishing guidelines and supporting material. And on the right side of the slide, you see an example of a material with supporting material, which is the chemical monitoring reporting guidance, published in the beginning of the data collection. What is a data model? The data model actually consists of three components. We have a structure in which the data can be reported. In other words, those are the data elements. We have also the catalogs to describe the terms to be used, and those codified terms, we call them control terminologies. And we have also the business rules and validation rules that specify the quality criteria for the reported data. First, the data model in EFSA, we have the standard sample description, which is a standard data model to collect information about the samples and the analytical results of the tests executed in the different laboratories. The data model provides the data specification for transmitting analytical results on different samples, and it's the model that we are using for the chemical monitoring data collection, which consists of different domains. As you can see on the table, we have the pesticide residues, chemical contaminants, food additives, food flavorings, and VMPR, vet medicinal product residues. And specifically for hexane, we have included this within the chemical monitoring data collection. It's not chemical contaminant, however, it can be the chemical monitoring data collection. It can accommodate also the inclusion of hexane for the collection of analytical data. The first of the elements is the reporting data elements, and those are consisting the data model and describe attributes of samples or analytical results. Examples of data elements can be shown in the picture in this slide, and you may see the matrix analyze, sampling strategy, sampling point, sampling country, unit of measurement. Those are only a few of the data elements that the data providers need to fill in. And in the pre-screen, you see an example of a simplified tool I will come back to that in a bit. There are mandatory and optional data elements. Main data elements need to be reported in a codified format, as we said earlier, the control terminologies. The second aspect is the catalog. The catalogs are control terminologies of a data model. A catalog is a list of terms that are organized in one or more hierarchies and are valid values with the same data element. Each term is identified by a code that can be used by data providers in data transmission. On the right side of the screen, you can see an example of a catalog. It's a param catalog, which visualizes all the reportable terms for the chemical contaminants. The harmonized terminology is another word is the list of the different catalogs that can be utilized for the preparation of the codes for the different reporting elements. And EFSA has the catalog browser, which is a Java-based application containing all EFSA's catalogs. And the catalogs can be downloaded in Excel format via Zenodo, but also the organization and the representatives of each organization that eventually will have the role of data provider will have credentials to be able to access the catalog browser online. But for different organizations that they would still want to have access to the catalogs, there's also the choice of offline access, and that is through the GitHub repository. As you can see on the slide, I have included the link for access and now download of different catalogs offline. Here in your screen, you see an example of two control terminologies. As said earlier, there are many SSD2 data elements, reporting elements, which require during the data transmission codification. So I would like to give two examples using the param code, which is the parameter code used to indicate the substance identified in the laboratory analysis. And the param code's element is linked to the param catalog, while the summat code, which is related to the coded description of the matrix of the sample, is linked to the MTX catalog. So in this specific example for reporting aflatoxin B1 as contaminant detected in maize germ, we have the aflatoxin B1 as our targeted chemical, and we have a maize germ as our matrix. So the data providers, they shall not report the aflatoxin B1 with the wording aflatoxin B1. They have to use the specific code, which is RF 0000-150 tox. And the same way for the matrix, under the summat code reporting element, they shall not use maize germ wording, but they would have to use the specific term A016K. There are many different catalogs used for the different codification of reporting elements. Here you can see a subset of catalogs in this table, and the full list of catalogs can be found within the chemical monitoring guidance, which I have included the link in the bottom of the slide. As I mentioned earlier, the chemical monitoring guidance is updated each year and is published by the beginning of the year, around February. And the third element of the SSD2 model are the business rules. And business rules are technical rules applied to transmitted data for the validation, applying technical or scientific requirements. In the data collection framework, which is the platform of the platform where the occurrence data are transmitted, there are automated validation rules. And there are business rules which are also validating the incoming data. And the data providers, once they transmit their data set, they have consequently they receive notifications if their data set is valid with warning or rejected. And in case of rejection, there's a business rule triggered, and there's description of business rule, as you can see in the screen, specifying where there is an issue with the transmitted data set. Therefore, the data provider would need to proceed with changes of the data set and resubmission. I would like to proceed with a bit more practical presentation on how to prepare and submit analytical data to EFSA. EFSA has created Excel reporting tools to help data providers prepare their data, and these need the file to be transmitted in DCF needs to be an XML file. The Excel reporting tools are Excel workbooks specifically customized to support the data providers in compiling their data records. And those Excel reporting tools can consequently be converted to XML files, which is the correct structure for transmission to EFSA via DCF. The reporting tools are structured in line with the SSD2 guidance and also the different catalogs. And they provide features that support manual creation of XML files. And then those files can be directly transmitted to DCF. For contaminants data, also especially for data providers who are new to data transmission. Therefore, this would also apply for new data providers for hexane. EFSA recommends the use of a simplified tool. And the simplified tool and support guidance can be found and downloaded through Zenodo. I have included the link on this slide. And the supporting materials, as found in Zenodo, are updated every year before the opening of data collection, and they're normally published annually in March. But for those months, and also considering that the data collection is not very long, it's from April until June, the data transmission. I would advise to utilize the coming months in introducing yourself and the data providers that they might have data on the supporting material as found for CheMon 2025, and utilize those material as a preparation for the upcoming data collection. A specific note for the reporting of hexane, we have actually the specific code for param code, which stands for coded description of the parameter analyzed. We have the code RF0009284 PAR, which is one of the codified names. You can see also in the pre-screen, in the param code, you don't see the hexane as a reporting name, you see the codes. And also for hexane, you can see that it's possible to include additional information in the data element param text. And as indicated in the arrow, here, for example, I have included two examples under param text, giving some additional information on the analytical data transmitted. And this can be that the result refers to residue of N-hexane, or we're talking about an analytical result for a technical hexane. Considering that the param code is quite generic, you might decide to include some additional information on the nature of the chemical, which will give additional information to the risk assessors. Next slide, please. In relation to the data collection framework, the so-called DCF is a web-based application designed to automate the process of data transmission for occurrence data and to perform preliminary checks. As already specified, there are specific validation checks of the transmitted file and embedded business rules, which are running and checking the data set once this is transmitted in DCF. For new data providers, and once you can confirm with us that you would like to transmit data to EFSA for occurrence data, I mean, you will need credentials, because credentials are required to access the platform of DCF. Therefore, you may contact us, iData unit, through our functional mailbox, data.collection@efsa.europa.eu. And then we will proceed with the creation of an account for you as a data provider. The reporting format, as we already said, for the data is XML. The guidance on data exchange recommends the XML as the delivery format for EFSA's data model, SSD2. Since the XML provides XML schemas to automatically validate the data and ensure that the minimum requirements for data quality are met. This means that the data are of good quality to be used consequently in the risk assessment. The validation checks, as we said, they are part of DCF, and there are three levels of automated validation by data collection framework. We have the file schema in line with SSD2 model. We have the control terminologies, and we have the business rules. And here you see some examples of business rules are as captured in the chemical monitoring guidance. For chemical contaminants, we have a prioritized list based on commission's mandates. And this year, we have included already hexane under the prioritized chemicals list. And this will be the case also for next year data collection for ChemOn 2026. And the open call for collection of chemicals, including hexane as prioritized substance, is expected to be published end of February 2026. Here I would like to capture the timelines for the current ChemOn 2025 data collection for occurrence data. The data collection normally opens and starts on April each year And 30th of June is the deadline for all data sets to be transmitted in DCF. And then we have the months of July and August, which are set for confirmation and also data validation and confirmation of data. And the same timelines will apply for ChemOn 26. And we have the opening of data collection 1st of April. And then the deadline for data transmission as this year, 30th of June. And here we see a recap from the presentations that we had for the data collection. In relation to the chemical toxicological data, we have Portalino as the platform to submit the data. And the timelines is from June 2025 until October 2025. And in relation to the analytical data, the part that I covered, we have the DCF, the data collection framework, which is a platform to transmit the occurrence data, analytical data. And the timelines is from April to 30th of June. I have included also the current data collection, considering that we receive data from member states, competent authorities, and also from industry data providers. And it could be the case that data is already transmitted by some data providers. And for the new ones, they can utilize the coming months to prepare for the upcoming ChemOn 2026. I think this was the last slide from my side, and I would like to give the floor to the next to Claude. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the presentation. It was very detailed, but I think it's very important to have a very clear presentation on how the data should be submitted to EFSA in order to be useful for EFSA. Okay, so thank you very much. We are a little ahead of schedule, but that's fine. It means that we will have more time for the Q&A sessions. And I think we can start this session now with the first question, which is, will the assessment be limited to the food categories and uses authorized in Directive 2009/32/EC? We know that residues can also be present in other food types, for example, non-extraction uses or for the preparation of food additives and feed. Daniele, can you reply, please?
Yes, thank you, Claude. So, yes, we are aware that technical hexane residues can be present in food types for which the use as an extraction solvent is not authorized in the directive. A case would be, for example, that residues are carried over from animal feed, to food of animal origin. However, the goal of the assessment is to determine the safety of technical hexane as an extraction solvent in the preparation of food and food ingredients. So for this specific use. So we won't assess the safety for other uses, or assessing the safety based on different origins of the solvent. However, the exposure part, so the exposure assessment, will consider the overall dietary exposure, so the exposure from all types of food and food ingredients. So we want, for the exposure part, we want only assess the exposure arising from the food categories in the directive. So yeah, maybe this is not very clear to understand, but so the exposure part will consider all the overall dietary exposure, but then the conclusion, so the risk characterization part, and the conclusion, we only deal with the use of technical hexane in the preparation of food and food ingredients.
Okay, thank you, Daniele. We can move on to the next question. Again, for you, and the question is, I'm wondering if feed panels tends to do similar investigation for feed materials, because I think that is not covered by this mandate, but also questioned and impacted in the market. That's a connection with the previous question. Daniele?
Yes, thanks again, Claude. The question on whether the assessment will assess the safety of the use in feed is no. We won't assess the safety of this use. We only focus on the use of technical hexane as extraction solvent for the production of food and food ingredients. So this will be the goal of the assessment. Regarding the feed-up panel, actually, yes, his remit is also to assess the potential risk connected to the presence of feed additives in feed materials, so could in theory also address hexane. But however, this mandate does not cover that, and the feed-up panel did not receive any mandate on this topic. I think it would be appropriate first to understand whether there is a concern related to the use of technical hexane in the extraction of food, and then also maybe proceed to other types of assessment. Our assessment won't deal directly to the safety of using feed, but may have considerations that may lead then to potential other assessment if needed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Daniele. Just a precision for those of you who are not really aware of the acronyms in EFSA. The feed-up panel is the panel which is in charge of additives and products or substances which are used in animal feed. Okay, so we can move now to the next question. We have data on the presence of hexane residues and derivatives in animal products such as eggs, butter, and meat. Is this considered in the assessment? Daniele, again.
Yes, it's again me. So absolutely, the evaluation will consider this data as we are aiming at considering the overall dietary exposure to residues coming from all food types. So if you have any data on this, please submit it through the proper channels that were explained today, following the request in the call for data. So if you have any trouble submitting, please contact us. It's very crucial that we receive this kind of data, because actually we don't know what are the residues. We really need to have a representative picture of technical hexane residues in food. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Daniele. The next question is asking, will the assessment consider exposures of babies and young children to hexane and its derivatives due to their consumption of milk and infant milk in large quantities rather than vegetable oil? I will answer this question. Well, indeed, this re-evaluation will deal with the exposure of infants to residue of technical hexane. Last year, the EFSA report, technical report, underlined the need for re-evaluation of technical hexane, already addressed the potential exposure of infants to these solvents residues, which should be further assessed in the upcoming re-evaluation, this one. But indeed, to assess the potential risks for infants, it is of great importance, utmost important, that data on potential residues of the solvent in food that may be consumed by infants, such, for instance, as infant formula or infant food, that these data are sent to EFSA. We really need all this information if you want to really conduct a proper evaluation of the consumption and the exposure of this population group. The next question is for Christina. Christina will answer. The question is how to assess correctly the exposure via food and other sources. Is the assessment focusing only on direct exposure from extracted food and food ingredients, or will it also include food chain exposure, exposure via, that is to say, exposure via food products of animal origin from animals fed hexane extracted feed? This one is also related to the previous one, but Christina, you may add some additional words.
Yes, thank you, Claude. Just to remind that the EFSA 2024 report, the exposure assessment was based on regulatory limits derived from the Directive 32 of 2009 and on assumptions on the food categories that may have technical hexane residues. So as a result, the assessment did not reflect the real exposure to consumers. Inadequate estimate of the real exposure so should use information on actual use of the solvent and on actual residual values. Therefore, it is really key that the information is submitted on current application of technical hexane as an extraction solvent in the production of food and food ingredients, and on food categories in which the residues are expected due to the use as an extraction solvent. And finally, on analytical data on technical hexane residues in food and beverage for human consumption. So I guess this clarifies the things.
Thank you, Christina. The next question is why EFSA concluded that the information considered by the SCF, in particular as regard the TNO study in 1989, is no longer sufficient to adequately conclude on the risk of technical hexane. This means that we are actually exposed to health risks from exposure to hexane via food? Question mark. Okay, I can answer this point. Well, we do acknowledge that the TNO study in 1999 was well conducted and in line with the standards for this kind of toxicity study at that time. However, the information provided is no longer considered sufficient to adequately conclude on the risk of technical hexane. Obviously, more toxicity endpoints are now evaluated, such as those which are requested by the EFSA guidance for submission for food additive evaluation, draft of the EFSA ANS panel in 2012, which is currently under updating, in fact. We also have to consider that the procedure for this toxicity study, which were conducted at the time of the TNO, are no longer the one which are now considered, because now more endpoints are considered. The OECD technical guidelines are updated regularly, in particular this the 90-day study. We have also to consider that we have, during the report, the drafting of the report, technical report last year, we have identified some recent publications reporting new information on the possible effects of N-hexane and its metabolites, effects on, for instance, on the kidney and liver and lung, immunotoxicity, endocrine disrupting activity, male and female reproductive toxicity, capacity to cross the placental barrier, and developmental toxicity, which were not examined in the TNO study and not considered in the SCF opinions. Now, what we have to say is that the information that were retrieved from this publication needs to be appraised for reliability and relevance before being included in the risk assessment. This will be the main goal of this of the current assessment. In addition, of course, reevaluation of the exposure will be performed. Okay, we can move to the next question. Why the EFSA ANS guidance on food additive is considered for the evaluation of the extraction solvents? Daniele?
Thank you, Claude. So indeed, this is out of practical but also scientific reasons. The practical reason is that in EFSA we don't have a specific guidance for the assessment for the submission of information on extraction solvents. But however, the panel, the SEP panel, now the FCM panel, consider that all the information that needs to be submitted for the submission of food additives can be also used for the submission of extraction solvents. And that's why we are actually referring to this guidance. The guidance is from 2012 and is going to be updated soon. So that's another thing that I would like to stress. The publication of the new guidance, updated guidance, is planned for late 2025. However, we don't expect so much bigger differences. But please consult also the new version when it will be available. Of course, this guidance does not cover entirely the type of data that we need for extraction solvents. For example, does not say anything on the process of extraction. So that's why this call for data was built not only using the food additive guidance, but also the considerations from the technical report of EFSA in 2024. We will also follow, and you should also follow other guidances if considered necessary. For example, the EFSA guidance is on genotoxicity, assessment of mixtures, for example, on the safety assessment of infants below 16 weeks of age. All of this will be anyway listed in the call for data. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Daniele. Just again, a point of precision. You've seen that the 2-methyloxylane was evaluated in 2022 by the EFSA SEP panel. Now the names of the different panels have changed last year, and the assessment of the extraction solvent is within the remit of this FCM panel, food contact material panel. This is why we had previously the SEP panel, and now these extraction solvents are within the remit of the FCM panel, and particularly the working group on extraction solvent. Next question is for Christina. Will EFSA analyze the proven general population contamination as reported by Cravotto et al. 2022? Christina, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Claude. So Cravotto et al. Review was considered by the EFSA report 2024. I'd like to clarify that EFSA will evaluate the dietary exposure to residue of technical hexane for all the age group of population following the EFSA guidelines. So it is important to point out that EFSA will only assess the oral exposure via food and not exposure due to other routes like the dermal inhalation route, because it's out of the remit of this evaluation.
Okay, thank you, Christina. You will be also answering the next question. Will EFSA consider all the papers related to 2,5-hexanedione toxicity as hexane metabolite? Will EFSA also collect extensive data on all hexane neurotoxic metabolites, not limited to 2.5-HD, but also to hexanone and the other gamma decatones?
So I think you also already answered before, Claude, to this, meaning that, of course, EFSA will examine, in addition to the data received by the call for data, also all the literature published related to hexane toxicity and its metabolites. So, of course, also the effect of the metabolites will be considered, and will be done a systematic review of the literature published since the beginning till up to now. So all the possible effects will be considered.
Thank you, Christina. I think we will have also to come back to this point later on, because in particular regarding the possible differences in metabolic capacity depending on the exposure route. Okay, thank you, Christina. We can move on to the next question for Daniele. Is it planned to work on hexane standard definition regarding contaminants purity for food? Daniele, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. So, so the aim of the call for data is also to collect information on the composition of technical hexane. The assessment will also have the aim of better specifying and understanding the composition of technical hexane in terms of typical levels and ranges of components and maximum levels of impurities of potential toxicological concern. So the assessment may result in proposals or the proposal of specifications for the technical hexane used for food. Please note, however, that the amendment of the directive. So the insertion of specifications or the restriction in the directive is outside EFSA's remit, which deals with risk assessment and not management. So it will be the Commission actually deciding on whether the directive needs to be changed, including specifications. They will consider EFSA opinion, but also will have other considerations on that. So that's it.
Thank you, Daniele. That's really an important point that was already underlined during the presentation, to have the precise knowledge of the composition of technical hexane. And this leads me to the next question, also related to that point. What are the typical residues of hexane in oils? Daniele?
So actually, at the moment, we cannot really reply to this question. We don't have really representative data on this. We could view some data also last year, but it was very limited, and so that we could not really use it for our technical report. And the goal of this call for data is actually to collect data on typical residues in vegetable oils, as well as also on other food types. What is important that we collect data on all the potential foods that are extracted with hexane, together with all other foods which may have hexane residues. Based on this, EFSA will determine the exposure to the consumer. So that's a good question to really stress that we really need this data. So it is a crucial part of this assessment, and we really need to have it to properly conclude on the safety of technical hexane.
Okay, thank you, Daniele. The next question is in the same, would say, field. Which purity requirements, parameters for technical hexane are in EFSA's focus? Daniele?
Yes, well, you already said something by answering to a previous question. And what I'm saying is also better described in the technical report, so I encourage you to read that if you want to know more. We aim to better understand what is the composition, the typical composition of technical hexane in terms of identity of the components, so not just normal hexane, but also all the other hydrocarbons, and potential presence of impurities of toxicological relevance. So these are actually the requirements and parameters, let's say, that we would like to understand. So that's why the call for data is asking to submit data on the composition of technical hexane and also on levels of impurities and proposed specifications. To understand also what is the level of detail of this information, please consult the guidance on submission of food additives and the technical report.
Okay, thank you, Daniele. And we will continue with you for the next question, which is what are the recognized analysis methods for the measurement of hexane, on which food matrices, and with what detection and quantification limits?
Yes, thank you. Actually, EFSA does not set analytical methods for the quantification of substances. So at the moment, we don't know. We expect that we receive data on measurement of technical hexane in food, but also data on its composition, which has to be performed according to appropriate methods. So we expect also to receive this kind of data supporting all the analytical data that we receive.
Yeah, in particular, the validation of the technical method used. Yeah, of course. Thank you, Daniele. We have one question again for Christina. Toxicological data from inhalation of the hexane could be useful.
Thank you, Claude. Yes, meaning that, or better, maybe. This is the answer. Indeed, we will collect and check all the toxicological animal and human data via any route of exposure. And then if the metabolism of hexane following the oral and the other routes of exposure will be recognized to be the same, and also if the toxicokinetic data on hexane would permit to convert mainly inhalation, because these are the main study probably available, to convert the doses to oral doses, then this study could be also useful to be considered for the assessment. If not, then we'll have to base our assessment only on the oral studies.
Of course, yeah, it's obvious that most of the toxicity data that we have regarding the technical hexane comes from the occupational exposure and therefore inhalation. And then what we have to consider is how could it be possible to use this inhalation exposure, and this draw the question of the internal dose.
Yeah.
We have to consider what is exactly the internal dose and what kind of metabolites could reach a potential target in the organism in the body. Okay, thank you very much, Christina, for the answer. We have now a question specifically for the submission of data. This is for Alexios. Just to be sure, use level data should be submitted by June 2025, June 2026, or rather in the call for data that will be open from June 2025 till October 2025. Alexios, can you precise this point, please?
Yes, actually, in this case, we don't collect used data, which are usually submitted for food additives that are seeking authorization and need the safety assessment. Technical hexane is a processing aid. So according to the legislation, residues should be avoided as much as possible allowed. In our remit is collecting the analytical data on levels of residues in food, and this collection, as we specified earlier, would need to be performed data collection framework in DCF. And then in relation to the timelines, will be open from June 2025 till October 2025. In relation to the analytical data collection, this is different compared to the toxicological data, and the timelines, they have been captured in the slides in my presentation. The chemical monitoring data collection and the collection of occurrence data would be from April to June 2026, but for the data providers that they have been already that they already have experience on the transmission of occurrence data through DCF, they could still transmit hexane occurrence data until the end of June. Otherwise, you may utilize the coming months to prepare yourself for the data transmission of occurrence data for April, starting from April 2026.
Okay, thank you, Alexios. And we can move on to the next question. Can you confirm if occurrence data in food ingredients should be for technical hexane, total, or individual isomers? Daniele, you have the floor.
Yes, thank you. So ideally, we would like to have data for each component of the technical hexane mixture. but at least for normal hexane, which is the only component that we know for certain that is there at the moment. So also, if you have data for total of technical hexane is welcome, definitely, but better if you have data for each component and at least normal hexane. However, please note that for this year, so for data collection on technical hexane residues in food, which is running up to the end of this month of June, only data on normal hexane can be submitted, as this code is connected to the cast number of normal hexane. For the next year, we will work on the possibility to open we will consider to open the collection also for the other components. However, we first need to know what is there. So what are these components? We know the component that some hydrocarbons should be there, but we don't know exactly the whole picture. So we expect to get this information from the call for data, from a data composition of hexane.
Okay, thank you, Daniele. Of course, that's very important to have a clear view of the composition of the different component of, again, technical hexane. We are assessing technical hexane, not N-hexane only. Okay, so the next question is, Daniele, I'm sorry, it's also again for you. Is all the data exclusively for already on the market and approved products, or products under development not yet approved are also considered?
Yes, thank you. So the data that we are going to ask is for the technical hexane which is currently used on the European market at the moment. So all the technical hexane that is on the market for sure should follow the definition given on its identity by the directive. For other types of hexane mixture that may be used that are outside of this definition, this shouldn't be used. So we are not interested in the composition of these other types of distilled products, only on technical hexane which is currently used for the extraction of food and food ingredients.
Thank you very much, Daniele. We have one question about taking into account the increased number of vegan meat alternatives in which N-hexane is used for protein extraction. Does that fall under the authorization, and is it considered in the assessment?
Yes. So I guess who wrote this question meant technical hexane, not normal hexane, because I don't think there are any industrial processes that are using the pure isomer to extract proteins. However, we are going to consider the exposure to all types of food, so including vegan meat alternatives. So this assessment also covers these types of food and will be considered in the assessments.
Okay, thank you, Daniele. I think we have reached the end of the questions.
There is another, I think.
There's another one. Oh yeah, the last one. Sorry, to Christina. Okay, the last one for Christina. Did EFSA compare hexane isomers from toxicology perspective? Will you focus on toxicity of N-hexane or such isomers? Christina, can you answer this question?
Thank you, Claude. So, as far as I remember, and also I confirmed with my colleague, the Scientific Committee of Food didn't consider, I guess, the isomers. But in the new evaluation, we will see the data we will find, meaning we will check whatever toxicity data we will find on technical hexane and hexane itself, meaning the literature will cover all the possibilities. So we'll see what we will find. I'd say like this. I don't know, Claude, if you'd like to add something.
No. I mean, you are right. We will will be more than happy to consider any information regarding the toxicity of hexane and additional isomers or whatever, or any close related compound which can be used for the risk assessment of the technical hexane. So any information will be taken aboard, will be appraised, and we will see what we can do with this information. But we will be more than happy to have as much information as possible. And this one can be indeed of interest for our evaluation. I think this time this is it as regards the questions and the answers. I hope you received the answers you expected. So we are a little ahead of schedule, but anyway, that's how it is. I think you received all the information you expected, and it's therefore now up to me to conclude this webinar. As I said at the very beginning of this webinar, oh sorry, you were almost 200 participating online. Which demonstrate your interest for this topic. This is really a success. During the presentation, we have presented our expectations in order to perform a robust and scientifically sound risk assessment of technical hexane. In this perspective, we presented our needs for data as regard the different aspect of the risk assessment, including exposure and biological data, that is manufacturing process, physicochemical characteristic, very important to know exactly what kind of product we are evaluating in order to, in the end, the goal will be that the commission, the manager, will allow, authorize or not this technical hexane, but at least to have very precise specification for the compound which could be authorized. Of course, we need the information about the uses and use levels for the estimation of the intake. And finally, the biological properties of technical hexane, of course, which are of paramount importance to assess the hazard. The procedure to submit your data was also explicated, and you were updated about the timeline of the assessment that is about to start again. We received the mandate from the Commission a few weeks ago, and this assessment is considered to be completed by 2027 in 30 months. It takes time, but we hope to have a lot of data to evaluate and to appraise. You ask a lot of questions. Most of them, I think, were answered. For those for which we are not able to answer orally, there will be another possibility to answer. In particular, some questions, some may require an in-depth analysis and cannot be quickly addressed in the context of this webinar, or some were out of scope, and obviously if they were out of scope, not considered to be answered during the webinar. If you want to reiterate some question already asked, and for which we didn't so far give an answer, you are invited to resubmit the question via the Ask EFSA service available, and you have the link available on the slide, and one of first or second slide. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but you have the link to resubmit your question. Well, to conclude, I want to thank all the speakers and contributors to the presentations, as well as the people of the technical staffs who made this meeting go well and in a very effective way. Thank you very much to them. That's important. And finally, I want to thank you all who were present during the session, and I expect that the interest you demonstrated will result in a number of relevant information and data being submitted to EFSA. And thus, we will allow the production of a scientifically sound opinion about the safety of technical hexane used as an extraction solvent for food and food ingredient. This being said, I wish you a very good day and goodbye. Thank you very much.